Okay, this video is my honest experiment of just opening my mouth and letting the river flow. God is everything. Thank God that He is in control and He is love. The greatest thing about being a child of God and being beloved of God is He's in control and He's in love with you. So you're just coming along for the ride. It's awesome. It's like I don't have to do anything tonight. I can just be in love with my Maker. You know? People talk about marrying rich and you'll have an easy time. It's like, well, marry God. Enter a covenant relationship with God through Jesus Christ. It's like, be with God. I love peace. Peace is priceless. You can go all sorts of places and see things created by God. But I just love being at peace with God. You can run all over the place to events and shows, but go back to the Garden of Eden. I just love being at peace with God and walking and talking and being alone with God. Peace is so priceless. Remember, God did not create Adam and say, "Oh, it is not good that man does not have a giant band and a bunch of musical instruments to distract himself with." Isn't it amazing how Adam and God talked? That's what they did. There were no shows in Eden. Can you just imagine that? Eden, paradise, in its original form, had no entertainment. As in, no one was putting on a show. Amazing to think about. Eden, first of all, God and man, walking and talking together in peace and quiet. Get back to nature, folks. Music is just out of control. Everyone has music now. I don't even need to start. Get back to nature. To understand what God likes, look at 99.999% of this planet. It's silent. Like, as developed as this world is, 99.999% of the physical landmass on this planet is nature. Like, silent. Like, if you go there, you're going to be in silence. As it was in Eden. Remember, God created perfection in Eden. God did not create Adam with an iPod. He did not say, "Oh, it is not good that man should not have a brass band. We need to make sure he's got entertainment. We need music here. We need a brass band, for Adam." Adam had peace. And he was comfortable. He was comfortable. He was at peace. And he had silence to hear the personal voice of Jehovah. They walked and talked with each other. They talked. We don't even hear evidence of them singing songs. I'm just saying it's out of control these days. I was sharing with my brother last night. It's like, why is it that the people? It's like worship is not music, and music is not worship. It's like, call it what it is. It's like, come to our gathering. Together we will sing songs to God. That is not just, that's what you're doing, okay? Yes, it's one way that you can worship God. So, but go back to Eden. Silence. Silence. Alone with God. And then Adam and Eve and God together. Silence, except for the birds in the air. Such peace. Such peace. Silence. Perfect silence. Silence in Eden. No cars. No TVs. No music boxes. No speakers. No play buttons. Silent nights. Silent mornings. Silent evenings. Silent noondays. There was no pageantry. There was no shows. There was no entertainment. They were naked. They walked and they talked. And again, consider, folks, what, God calls home precious saints on their deathbeds. 99.9% of them are lying in silence, just enjoying fellowship with God. If that's the highest pleasure, God saves the best for last, and we fellowship with Him in silence, why are we choosing bronze medals and going to all these shows? All these programs. They're programs, people. They are pre-rehearsed. Your brain is going to be strapped to a rail. And, the still small voice of God. So I just say, come back to Eden. Go back to Eden, folks. Walk in silence. Live in silence. Spend time in silence. Listening for God's voice. So silence is paradisical. I just can't. And I'm a science lover, I'm a truth lover. I like studying the works of God in silence, and words like this, or we'll receive a word from God and we'll look at it more and talk about it. I like studying plants. I'd rather study plants and flowers and God's creation than typically be in like a music concert. But Adam and Eve walked in the garden in silence. Such peace. There was such peace in Eden. Peace. I tell you, I'm just so sick of manicness. I have no patience for it. The less I run around people, the less I run around, the happier I am. The less I drive places, the more satisfied I am. The less appointments I try and keep, the happier I am. Slow down. Be at peace with God. Lie in bed and just listen. It's amazing to me how God has even ordained hospital time for many, many saints throughout history. And it was the most pleasurable time of their life, where they just lay there and there was no music and they couldn't, do hardly anything except be still. I have a phrase, I've used at several points. I call it airport time. Interestingly, that phrase also divides by 3. I do believe the words that we get from God are for His glory. Airport time is my phrase to describe a situation where everyone is just forced to be still and wait. You know when you show up early at the airport and you just have to wait for the plane? And everyone is finally, it's like humanity is finally sitting around and waiting. In peace and in silence. There's no music playing there, or at least there shouldn't be. And And then sometimes, the plane missed its arrival time, and something happened, and I've had to overnight in an airport. And they brought out, the cheap cots and the cheap blankets they keep at airports, and honestly, they're some of the most precious, memorable times I have, because it's like all of a sudden your schedule has been derailed. All of a sudden now you're just forced to just be still and be in silence alone with God. And all of humanity, you just feel them breathing a sigh of relief that the schedule finally got shifted, and now we're forced into some kind of special occasion where we actually love each other and people are talking together, and we can't go anywhere. I call airport time is what I call, we're stuck here. We can't go anywhere, so we might as well focus on personal relationships. Okay? And for me, it's just quiet time with God. Precious airport time, I call it. I can't stand, I love speaking like this. This is my blessing. I love to speak and to share what I'm learning about God and my journey with God and things I'm hearing from God. I love to speak. What will we hear from God next? What will we learn next? Shows come and go, We need to invite the presence of God and focus on personal relationship with Him and hearing His voice. Another thing that's helpful is look at 99% of human history. Before the 1900s, for example. Just take all of human history before the 1900s and consider how slow the pace of life was. Consider the amount of patience people had. Consider the lack of noise. Consider the lack of material stuff. Consider the lack of entertainments and distractions and lights and sounds. And God, I love preaching on history because God did not deprive the people who came before us of any pleasure, compared to what we have now. Okay. God gave them the grace to love and enjoy Him just as much as we do now. And but just consider 99.9% of human history. Silence, peace. And even when you think about, how they worshipped God with music back in the days of Israel, think about even then how much simpler the music would have been. Like the instruments were very simple. There were no speakers, there were no electronics, there was no fancy sound system. That tells us right there that the actual audio quality, in a musical performance isn't what our souls are needing. It's the heart of longing to connect with God and to love Him that is important. But now, man, everyone's caught up on we gotta have crystal clear sound, and it's got to sound delicious to the ears, and we're all enamored by the sound and the sights rather than the heart on the inside of us longing to be in love with God. Just imagine in your mind what musical expression was like when they sang praises to God in the ancient days of Israel. It was pretty simple compared to what we can pull off now. And I always like going back to the Garden of Eden. because that always reminds you, and the life of Jesus. We need a proper balance here. Like, look at the life of Jesus when he walked on this earth. What percentage of Jesus' time on earth did he spend in the world of music? And I'm just preaching on this because music is just out of control today. Okay? It's because it's so easy to do. Beware of things that are just easy to do that now become so prolific. Oh, because it's easy. Oh, we can just press play on our iPod. We can press play. We can turn on the radio. It's just a quick, easy thing to do. You know, cue up the music. Oh, that didn't take any effort. Just cue up the music. It's like, look at the life of Jesus. You know, Jesus did not demonstrate to us that a worship service is a musical service. The life of Jesus, like, there is recorded once in the life of Jesus that we have written in the New Testament, where it says, and they sang a hymn. Jesus and his disciples, I believe it was perhaps even the night of the Last Supper. It says they sang a hymn together. That would have been a cappella. A small group of men, Jesus and the 12. Maybe it was 11, I think, if Judas had left, but you get it. They sang one hymn. And then they went out, and for the rest of the time they were talking with each other. Jesus was telling them truth, and they were simply listening to the beauty of language in natural silence in the background. Okay. We have no indication that Jesus even learned a musical instrument and played it while he was here on earth. I'm just saying, there's so much worship of music right now. It's so bad that we have even replaced the word musical service with the word worship service. It's like now people just think that worship is music. It's like, whoa, when did that lie, like, take over? You know? Jesus talked with people at a normal volume, like Adam and Eve and God did in the Garden of Eden. He walked and he talked. And he spent all night in prayer with God. He often withdrew into the wilderness and prayed in silence. He did not, put on his jogging shoes and plug into his headphones and go into the wilderness and, bliss out on the latest worship songs. He walked out in silence the whole way. And he was listening to the voice of his Father and probably saying things in return. It was de facto human conversation. Human God conversation. Personally, I love total removal from the noise. Oh my gosh. Remember, folks, the best things in life are free. It's not what you have, it's what you don't have. Just God designed the universe so that all the best things could be experienced by the poorest of the poor. I've preached on this before. It's like the best things in life are free. Well, wait a second. Music costs money. Music takes effort to produce. Music requires all these things to get going. Well, silence is free. And silence is everywhere. And silence was in the Garden of Eden. So, doesn't that seem to tell you that silence is actually more precious than music? The best things in life are free. All the poor missionaries in Africa, maybe they can't even afford one instrument. They certainly don't have a sound system. God provides even the best to the poorest of the poor. Well, peace in his presence. His voice in silence. They're probably happier than we are with all of our fancy musical shows. I'm even tempted to not call some of them worship services because many degenerate into musical performances, where people are so caught up in the performance and getting everything right and making sure they hit the notes and making sure it all looks good and making sure it's all orchestrated, making sure people like the sound and the feeling of the beat and the amount of the audio, and all of a sudden no one's even hearing the personal voice of God. No one's even focusing that much on God compared to getting the music right. Silence is golden. If silence is free and music costs something, silence is the better thing. Everything in the scripture, from start to finish. Nearly every prophet walked in silence. I mean, read about Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. None of these men. Well, there's cool stuff. I gotta say, cool stuff. Remember the prophet Elijah, I think? He says, "Bring me now a musician." And when the musician played, the hand of Jehovah came upon him and he prophesied. So, there is a place for both. Okay? But, in my life personally, I'm preferring silence and hearing the personal voice of God rather than going to a musical performance. And, yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Peace is so priceless. You know? Amazing. Very cool. Well, I'm probably going to just have a peaceful night together with God. I love just opening my mouth and share what I can. I love the words of Jesus that he said, "For this cause was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. He that is of the truth hears my voice." Like, for this purpose I came into this planet, to bear witness to the truth. Jesus did not come to entertain. He did not come to make us feel good for a night. None of the prophets did. I just believe God is calling people to a deeper level where we are finding deeper satisfaction in truth about God. And God is just, we're being more personal with God. And people, be honest with yourselves. You've seen shows. You've seen guitars being strummed. You've seen extravaganzas. Are we really hearing the personal voice of God? Are we really in love with Him personally? Wow. So I love silence like crazy. I cannot stand manicness. I cannot stand manic rushing. There is no pleasure in being out of time. There is no pleasure in rushing. There is no pleasure in getting through something quickly and fitting it all into a time slot, and then we gotta go, go, go. There is no enjoyment. You are just locked to a rail. I love open-ended speaking like this. I love open-ended services. I think we need a revolution in open-ended services. I don't know how many get-togethers for, singing songs and praise and worship to God and just gatherings of Christians in general are open-ended anymore. I think we need a revival, an open-ended singing time where we just go, where we purposely declare that there is no set end to this and we are just here to sing, worship God, whatever, pray. Because there's no enjoyment in rushing. As soon as you are behind schedule, as soon as you are rushing, you have lost all enjoyment. Time is enjoyment. It is far more pleasurable for you to take a walk with your loved one for 3 hours in peace and silence. It's amazing what will come out of both of you. I'm amazed at how God literally speaks through us and brings more healing and more words of wisdom and more truth out of our lips as we simply give each other time. Like if a husband and their wife take a 3-hour walk and quiet time in nature, it will be far more pleasurable for both of them than if they went out for dinner at a busy restaurant, then went to a, God forbid, a 1 hour and a half long movie. That's the worst thing of all. You're not even communicating to each other. You're strapped in front of a dumb program. If two people just spend like 3 hours of like, we don't know what we're going to talk about, we don't know what's going to come out, we don't know, we're just going to spend 3 hours of time together, you will have far more pleasure doing that. Just, yeah. It's funny how the world won't understand you. They'll be like, dude, why don't you like coming out like for these like crazy events? And I'll be like, I'm just being honest. I have more satisfaction staying at home in peace or going for a walk in peace in the twilight thinking about God. They'll be like, that's weird. I'll be like, no, actually what you're doing is weird. You're just bombarding yourselves nonstop day and night with junk that honestly doesn't satisfy you. I'm like, that's weird. Choosing stuff that doesn't actually satisfy. Go back to Eden. I've preached on this before. Jesus was the happiest person who ever lived. And look at what Jesus did not have. If you want to set yourself free from the pursuit of a bunch of dumb junk that doesn't satisfy you, look at the physical life of Jesus while he walked this earth and add up to yourself all the things that he did not have or experience while he walked this planet, and yet he was and always will be the happiest person who ever lived. Jesus never went to Disneyland. Perfect, so you don't have to go to Disneyland to be happy. Jesus never got on an airplane, period. Perfect, so you don't have to travel to be happy. Jesus never had like 5 changes of clothes. Perfect, so fashion won't make you happy. Jesus never had a girlfriend or a spouse. Perfect, so a spouse will not make you supremely happy. Jesus never had kids. Perfect, so you don't need biological kids to make... Jesus never had a house. Jesus never had a fancy career. Well, actually, his vocation was like higher than any. He never worked in an office. He's like, just think in your mind all the things that you are personally pursuing right now, as in some thought you're thinking that this is going to make me happy. Just think of the things right now that you are honestly thinking will boost your happiness. And then compare it to the life of Jesus while he walked this earth. And just do a quick comparison. Did Jesus need what I'm pursuing in order to be supremely happy? Oh, he didn't. Well, then apparently I don't need to be pursuing this thing. That's another just chain falling off me. Another stress that I don't want in my life. One thing I can't stand, and that I just see over and over again, is how people who are addicted to humans to try and find happiness, and people who look to human events and human performances and human relationships to try and fulfill them, they can't stand it when you find your satisfaction in God. It's almost like they feel jaded, like, oh, how dare God be more satisfying than us? How dare you consider God to be more satisfying than spending time with me? Oh, it's just preposterous. How could you possibly think that the Triune God of the universe, who is pure love and pure romance and pure pleasure to be in the presence of, how could you possibly choose quiet time alone with him rather than spending time with us? How could you possibly conclude that that would be more pleasurable and satisfying? I'm like, it's disgusting. You know? But you're making the far more satisfying choice by spending time alone with God. It's like, people just need to just let go of themselves. It's like, no, really, we really do suck compared to God. It's like, imagine that God was in the flesh friend, and he's super everything you ever wanted in a person to hang out with, like oozing love. He is love. It's like, I'm going to choose to hang out with him all the time rather than you. Like, sorry, like, I just like him more. Like, just get over it. The fact that God is actually a lot cooler than all the humans. Say it like it is, people. We need to get over ourselves. It's like, if someone doesn't want to spend time with me because they'd rather spend time with God, I'm like, finally, someone is getting it. Finally. Someone is actually understanding human satisfaction. Go into your prayer closet, be in silence, or take a walk in nature, wherever in silence, and listen for God. And have quiet, silent prayer and quiet, silent worship. Stop hanging around humans. They're always a disappointment. I have noticed that people that keep turning from human to human, it's like they just never have enough. It's like, I gotta go to the next human relationship. I gotta go to the next social event. I gotta run off to the next thing. Wow. In case you haven't noticed, I like saying God, God, God. The world likes to say people, people, people. Us, us, us. We. Stuff, stuff, stuff. I like saying God, God, God. It's interesting to me in the Bible, in Israel, the 12 tribes, Levi. Of Levi it said Jehovah was his inheritance. He didn't receive land or possessions like the others. He received Jehovah. Jehovah was his inheritance. Would that not make him the richest of all? Of course. He was the richest of all. Jehovah was the inheritance of Levi. Interestingly, for the numbers thing, Levi divides by 3. It's a 48, double of triple eights. Levi. Just like Mary. I find it interesting. Mary is triple eight by the law of prime. Levi is a double of triple eights. It's kind of pointing us to the gold medal life. The story of Mary and Martha worshiping and serving. Levi, the priesthood that dwelt in the presence of God. And, there's a verse in the Bible that says, I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. Money is dirt. Oh man, stuff is just dirt. It is dirt. It's just dead material stuff, dead atoms. Only living souls and God are, eternal. I have very little patience for childish banter. That's why I like staying home and making videos like this. Talking about God, talking about my favorite subject. Someone in the future or in the present will listen. And they too will enter into the pleasure of relationship with God. I love how theologians, they pour themselves out, and for me, I like to speak. I won't sit and type, I'll speak. Okay. Interestingly, a heart of love and desire for God, in my strong opinion, is more important than a life of rule keeping. King David, was a God man. He wasn't always a good man, he was a God man. He sincerely was fascinated and enamored by and in love with the maker of everything, God. As soon as we tell our children, if we start raising our children to be rule keepers, we've already started on the wrong track. It's not about rule keeping. It's about God loving. So how do we express our love to God? Back to the subject of worship. How do we express our love to God? Amazingly, words is astonishingly something that comes to mind. Words. This study on the perfection of English, mathematically, has never given me more esteem for words. God gives these words to us like diamonds. We can give these words like diamonds back to God. A husband and wife, words. I've read a lot of things. A woman, a wife in particular, craves words from her husband. Obviously, the husband craves words from the wife. But I particularly believe that a man, a woman craves a lot of words from her husband. And we crave words from God. We long to hear Him tell us things. And the Bible is clear that Christ is the head of the man, the husband is the head of the wife. So if, we men and we people in general crave words from God, then how much more does the wife crave words from her husband and God simultaneously? And worship. I marvel at how it's like we think about God, thinking about worship. So I believe that physical prostration and physical bowing of knees, as Daniel did, is simply a God-pleasing, God-created human act of worship. Physically bowing our knees in silence. Sometimes it's really helpful to imagine yourself as a king and what would bring you pleasure in someone that was wanting to express their love to you and wanting to worship you. So helpful. Let's say I'm a king on a throne and I'm really powerful and I own everything and I'm just really powerful. And let's say there's this beautiful young lady that wants to express some incredible level of love and honor and respect for me. Okay? This is just helpful for us understanding what God finds pleasure in worship. What can that lady do in order to bring me pleasure as the king, as an act of adoration, love, worship? What is just going to grab my heart like crazy and make me fall in love with this young lady? I tell you, if I saw a young lady get physically down on her knees in silence and bow down in front of me as an act of gratitude, humility, willingness, servanthood, worship, if you will, I would be instantly in love with that person. What else can she do? I think that's amazing. The physical kneeling in silence. Whew! I mean, if that just instantly, you're just like, whoa. What else? I think, truth be told, she can listen. Oh man, if she listens to everything I have to say, I'm going to fall in love. Because listening is an act of worship. I think listening is an even greater act of worship than expressing. Oh, if she comes into the room and she's like, oh, I love you, King. Oh, you're so great. Oh, I think it's so awesome. Oh, thank you for this. Oh, thank you for that. And clearly, God perspective, clearly I'm like the knowledgeable one, the wise one, and clearly she's like the little human. I'm saying God and us, you know what I'm saying? It's like I would actually have more pleasure if she would just be quiet and sit there and just listen to me. And if she just sat there and listened, and I just got to blab my heart out, and she didn't stop listening to every word I had to say, and she was attentive to every word that I had to say, and she respected every word that I had to say, and she was like taking notes on it, and she was really interested in it, and she was like saying, wow, that's amazing, and she kept just really loving it and listening more and more and more. I'm going to fall in love with that person. I'm going to be like, I love this person. Because they listen. Remember Mary and Martha in the story of Jesus. She sat at his feet and she listened to him talk. And Jesus said, I like her more. What else can this young lady do in order to bring the king pleasure? This is, what's going to bring the most pleasure? Well, she can jump around my neck and like kiss me like crazy. Now, technically, we can't do that physically to God. So that's something that, it doesn't quite fit the bill in this. But what else can she do? So she can physically prostrate herself. She can listen. Interestingly, there's many dancers. It's like she can do a beautiful performance, of course. A dance. Dance is a form of worship that obviously brings God great pleasure. But it's like, personally, I think the humble waiting in silence is really attractive. I think it's such a, it's just like, you are everything, I am so much less. Like we think we got to put on a show for God, it's like, look at us, it's like, it's like, I want to dance for God, I want to play a trumpet for God, I want to beat the drums for God. It's like, is there anyone that just can be silent and kneel before God? So that you're completely allowing Him to talk. And you're just acknowledging that He has all the goods, He has all the words, He has all the everything. It's like we always try to mix in a little bit of ourselves in this whole thing. It's like, watch me, watch what I can do, watch what I can do. I can dance, I can twirl, I can wave flags. I just want to be doing something. It's like, okay, that's fine, kids, but I'm just thinking of myself. It's just interesting. It's like if I was a king on a throne, and there came in all these people that were going to give some kind of offering of adoration to me as a king. Some of them do acts, flag waving, dancing, whatever, just all over the place, doing these look at me, I'm so good. I would just be like, whereas if someone came in silence and just kneeled before me and then sat at my feet and just said, I would just love to listen to you talk, because I know that you are pure wisdom, and you are pure truth, and you are pure glory, and you are the greatest show on earth, and you are the one, and I am the audience. How many times do we approach a worship service as if we are the show and God is the audience? Folks, wait a second. God is the show. God has always been the show. When are we going to get it right? Our job is to be the audience. Remember, the one who is the performer is technically the one who is giving to the audience. Well, God has so much more to give than we ever give to Him. I think it's a greater act of pleasure to God if we just get our mouths shut and humble ourselves before God and say, you are the show. You are God. You can say anything, and I know it'll be the best thing for me to hear, and I'm just going to sit here and learn from you. Jesus hit it home in the story of Mary and Martha. The one was putting on an act, she was doing what she could do. The other one was sitting at the feet of Jesus saying, Jesus, you are the act. Jesus, you teach me, and I'll just sit here and listen. Do we have any good listeners anymore? Do we have any women that just know how to listen and like listening? It's disgusting. Everyone's like, I gotta be a star. I gotta put on an act. I gotta impress the king. If you want to impress the king, keep your mouth shut and sit still and get a posture of humility in silence before him. That'll impress him big time. He'll be like, finally! Finally, someone gets it right! Me, it's like, that's wonderful. Why don't you listen to God, who is pure wisdom, pure intelligence, pure knowledge, and let Him lead the show. We all come, we all come like, we are in control of this service. We're going to sing what we want to sing. We're going to say what we want to say, and then we're just going to walk out of here. It's like, can you imagine a king sitting on his throne, and here comes the adoring, people. They dance, they come into his throne room, they dance, they play musical instruments, they say words, and then they just leave the presence of the Almighty. You're just like, wait a second, we were just in the presence of pure wisdom, pure knowledge, pure glory, and we didn't even let Him speak to us? How arrogant was that? That we came, did all the talking, did all the prancing, did all the acting, and then we just left. You're just like, whoa, Here's another way of thinking about it. To each his own. God has gifts in every child. But I just think, let's say I'm a dad and I got kids. And there's the kids that love to come and dance in front of me and all this stuff. I guess it's all pleasure. It's all God's pleasure, But I just think it makes sense for us to keep our mouths shut more often and listen for the personal voice of God. It's like, have you ever been listened to patiently and carefully by a human being that really respected what you were saying for a long amount of time? That's what you call honor. That's what you call love. That's what you call respect. How many listeners for the voice of God do we have alive anymore? How many people are listeners rather than talkers? Oh, he's a great singer. Oh, what a fantastic worship leader. How about this? Oh, he's a fantastic listener. He's a fantastic waiter upon God. Oh, he's a great worship leader. All he does is listen in silence. That's a true worship leader. People will be like, that's profound. What do you know? We're actually hearing from God now. We're actually experiencing a personal relationship. Oh my. It's like, oh man. Too much fanfare. Too much fanfare. Not enough conversation. Remember, back in Eden, there was no fanfare. It was just real conversation between God and man. The Bible refers to this as waiting on Jehovah. When you have an appointment with the Queen of England or some person greater than yourself, you show up early and you wait in silence and you let them lead the conversation. Well, I believe that's what we do with Jehovah. We show up early and we wait in silence until He starts speaking on His time, on His subject, and that is an act of respect and worship on our part for Him. When you show up early for someone and you wait, it's an act of worship. If we do that for dignitaries, should we not expect to do that for God? People say, oh, I can't hear the voice of God. Well, maybe you're not waiting long enough. Maybe you haven't expressed the listening, patient nature that God desires before He opens Himself up in new ways to you. Okay? And this video camera is almost out of memory chips, so we're going to have to start a new video.